Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We're focusing in on a viewer question we got in, or basically more of a positive comment. And that was basically that he had complimented me on some music that I was playing in one of my videos. And his inquiry was, what is that music that's very calming to my nerves? So I want to focus in on, I think one of the most pressing issues I think that come up with trying to heal in surviving or getting through or healing beyond, and then really getting to the thrive space, the empowerment space of after experiencing narcissistic or psychopathic relationship or that emotional abuse and manipulation. And that is how to calm your nerves, how to relax, how to come into being, how to come into your own body, how to become present, how to truly let go of that baggage. And the baggage is kind of like an emotional baggage. It's an emotional, energetic wall that you can create basically around you when you are trying to cope with a very painful, emotionally painful relationship, or it could have been, something chronic that has occurred for a long period of time. So now it's become part of not only your mood, your emotion, but it's become part of your identity to wall people out or wall yourself out even. And you might be dealing with a lot of anger at the situation and not having been attended to or loved or appreciated or honored in the way that you wanted, needed, and deserved. Not only is there an anger, there can be a resentment that occurs from having held onto it for a long time and perhaps not knowing how to deal with it or how to deal with it ineffectively. If you're trying to work out the anger and resentment with the violator, with the perpetrator, with the narcissist, a psychopath, someone who's harboring this resentment, that's part of the issue, is that there's no empathy there. There's no compassion. It's a pathological selfishness on one side of the relationship. So what happens is a lot of people then become adaptive to that to try to quote unquote make it work or live in the solution, as I say. And then they become codependent, which means they sacrifice all their own needs, their own voice, their own strengths, really to serve or focus on another. So do you see how the narcissist gets the attention that they need by you adapting to constantly trying to parent them, even if they're your own parent, or be a mother to someone who is a parent, or protective of a sibling who is a narcissist. So you end up developing a personality that really becomes as a supply to them, as we use the word, to really take care of their ego needs. And you then, through that cycle, you get a new identity or a new ego, and then your secondary ego needs are then satisfied by taking care of them. So your life becomes basically a reflection of trying to serve their needs, rather than something, that uniquely on your own, where you have your own I am, where you have your own talents that are reflected, mirrored back to you, honored, and appreciated. So, whereas this is, trying to, bubble to the surface. So as you go through life and you feel like maybe something is missing, or I'm unhappy, or my life is so much all about satisfying this person, and if this individual, lets go the scene, well, then I feel like I've lost my identity. And, so your identity is like fixated or transfixed on this individual. And so, of course, when we see, things like divorce or, family issues where there's a lot of fighting and conflict going on, and if this is the core of it because there's a narcissist involved dynamic, then you must realize that and really examine yourself and say, to what extent have I developed a mask, a persona, or an identity that's meant to please this individual, to keep the rage under control, to keep the insults from stopping, so I don't have to walk on eggshells for so long. Why? Because, your life then becomes, it takes on a meaning, but it takes on a meaning only to the extent that you can serve them or satisfy them or keep their rage under control or keep their insults from stopping. And, some people find themselves very trauma bonded in the situation or having to tolerate these situations because they haven't learned the self-esteem yet to conquer this. So, and I know that this is a lot of heavy content, and I hope you can play this again and again because this has required years of study on my part. This has taken a lot of years of study, examination, research, and so I know I'm really trying to boil it down and make it very simple for you to help expedite your healing. And so if you have realized that you have developed kind of like a secondary personality or a mask or a persona, that is meant to serve them, but yet you feel like there's something missing, there's something more for your life, there's something more about you that hadn't been ever validated, and you feel kind of like guilty for living this way or having the love or having the needs that you do. And remember, as we've discussed in previous videos, is that the needs that you have feel so awkward and so uncomfortable because this narcissistic or psychopathic individual does not have the same needs. They do not have the same needs for love. They don't have the same needs for closeness. They don't have the need for sharing, balance, and cooperation. They don't have the same needs of empathy because they don't possess that in their personality. That is part of the personality disorder, is that they are lacking and deficit in empathy. And so that's why you're not getting it satisfied. And since they have this deficit, they score very low in terms of like wanting harmony or wanting empathy. It's not something that they want. They will put on a mask in order to have empathy, or they'll have what's called like a cognitive empathy, where they'll, intellectually understand it, but they really don't feel it. They don't really get where you're coming from. And furthermore, they won't give the time and attention and importance to empathy or towards hearing someone's needs, or like hearing you out or really understanding you. And they really don't really care. And that is part of the hurt, I think, for a lot of people. It's a big pill to swallow. And if you've got a big pill to swallow, then get yourself a worry rock. Or not a worry rock, get something to remind yourself that you have the personal power. You can swallow that pill. You can accept the way that this person is. You can see for what they are. You have courage to face your own self-reliability and your own responsibility to yourself, which becomes then to become, what John Bradshaw calls, you need to become your own parent, or you need to become your own best love. You need to become your own best friend. You need to become really almost in essence, the spouse that you would want to be. And if you've found yourself kind of hollowed out in that, realize that you can really be your own parent. You can give yourself the love, the attention, the pat on the back, the guidance, the encouragement, the job well done. You can possess that within, and you unequivocally should be able to learn and grow into that, where you basically are giving yourself the encouragement that you missed, and you no longer look for it from them. You no longer seek or work in your life to make that your end goal. You no longer, strive to get that validation from an individual who is not capable of giving you that validation. It's like you can try for months, you can try for weeks, you can try for years, you can try for decades. You can try for, half a century. I do believe, and I spoke with a fellow social worker, and who has worked in the field, and there's he had mentioned that there are people who are on their deathbed, and they're and their kids are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're still trying to get that parental approval. I mean, it's just it's inherent, it's inborn, but you have to realize that there's people who present with certain pathologies that are not capable of giving you that approval that you're looking for. They don't have it in their emotional repertoire. They don't have it in their neural wiring. The brain regions that they have don't function and wire the same way. They're not able to, give that to you. And even though you want that, you have to be able to let that go and not feel like you are a bad person. You were a bad daughter, a bad spouse, a bad son, because of that issue. Either if you were a golden child and you have to constantly, received kid glove treatment, and you were coddled and you were tended to more closely and with praise and everything, but yet you kind of feel like so much was handed to you and you never had a chance to really work for it or be your own self, because basically you were painted into a golden child status, or you were painted into a scapegoat status where you were the black sheep. You were made to feel wrong, or you were made to feel inadequate or less than or inferior because you were unique. And so really that's what it is. And I always remember when you look at really the world at large, and if you think about a magnificent building or wonderful architecture, and this is like my own personal insight, but just think of all the blueprints, all the pain that was wrought to erect that skyscraper, and the interior design and the building and the securing of materials and the layout and the measuring and the dealing with all the different elements, while they're building it, the rain, the sleet, the snow, the burning hot, the dangerous altitudes, the loud noises, all the pain and suffering that grew to create this masterpiece, this work of art, this skyscraper. And imagine how many unique people it took to create that skyscraper. And so having grown up near a metropolitan city, that's something that really stands out to me. To me, a city is like a gem. It's many facets of a gem with all the different buildings, reflecting in the sun. And you see all the different colors of window and glass and different steel and marble and concrete and, different designs and structures. And, realize that, oftentimes, there are many, many walks of life that have been required to build these cities, these skyscrapers. And, these people were not all the same. They were not all narcissistic. They could have had a learning disability. They could have had a speech impediment. They could have different colors of skin. They could have different hair textures. They could have had different disabilities that someone might have interpreted it as a disability, but yet they were very strong in some area. For someone who is a painter, you don't have to be an expert at numbers. Someone who's a numbers person isn't necessarily an expert at art. So it takes all different types. So learn really and know in your heart that you are embraced and loved for the person that you are, for your own unique walk of life, your own values, your own intrinsic heart, your own intrinsic self-worth, the way that you think, the way that you approach life, and the good that you have to give is really desired and what is wanted in life. And be in touch with that on a daily basis. Remind yourself of that and live from that spot, and really stand in that and remind yourself at least once an hour how important and how special you are for the unique individual that you are. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.